Welcome back to Pre-Meds all over the nation. We welcome you to the Altius headquarters in Provo, Utah. We're currently in what I like to refer to as our family room, just a little section of our offices where we gather together to interact and to brainstorm and to support students. I'm joined this morning by some of our top scoring students that have now become one-on-one mentors for us. And I'm going to introduce you to them and basically share with you a really awesome moment of basically panel discussion and their interaction with each other to help you get a better feel of kind of how birds of a feather flock together. It's really what I'd like to accomplish for you today is showing you the ability to bring this same opportunity together for you. As we do so, of course, we do our part in remaining socially distanced and in these masks. So we'll be talking through those. So hopefully that all comes through okay for you, but we want to just demonstrate that respect for each of those that are here on the panel. So I'm going to step off camera and then let these individuals introduce themselves to you so you can get to know them a little bit. And then I will begin our discussion with a couple of questions that I will ask of them. But feel free to chime in on the chat and ask your own questions, and those will be fed to us as well. And then obviously we have huge prizes that we'll be giving away, and we'll be doing a drawing again as we wrap up this conversation. So Conrad, who is kind of our head mentor and coach and trainer for all of our tutors across the nation, let's introduce you to Conrad Ashby and have him introduce himself, and we'll just go around the room.
Awesome. Yeah, like Roger said, my name's Conrad. I'm the head tutor at Altius. I've been here for about 6 years now. I've always had a passion for education. I love medicine. Originally had some plans to go in to do some academic medicine, and decided I could make a bigger difference here, helping students prepare for the MCAT, go through. I took the Altius program myself. I remember being pretty lost as a student, and then went on and graduated from BYU, just across the street, in physiology and developmental biology. And then got my master's at the Morsani College of Medicine at University of South Florida. And then now I'm here. So I'm really excited to talk today with some of our tutors, as well as to talk to each of you about some of the things that you're going to experience in the MCAT world.
Awesome. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Emily. I just graduated from BYU across the street in December with a degree in nutritional science and a minor in international development, which is really fun. I am going to medical school this fall. I haven't decided where yet. I'm from Houston, and I have an offer from UT McGovern, which is in Houston, which I'm really excited about, but still waiting to hear back from a couple different schools on a couple different wait lists, so haven't decided yet. Been working for Altius since this last August, and I've really loved it. I loved being a student with Altius, and I've loved being a tutor even more. It's so great working with students, both one-on-one and in the classroom. It's been an incredibly fulfilling job, and it's given me a lot of great skills that I can't wait to apply both in medical school and in my career as a physician.
Awesome. My name is Steve Olson. I am from Calgary, Alberta, Canada, and I've been working as an Altius mentor for the past 8 months, just like Emily, which means we both took our tests during COVID. So we definitely understand that life can throw things at you when you're taking your MCAT, and it doesn't make it any easier. But it really makes a difference having an awesome program like Altius. I feel like I've learned so much as a student, as a mentor, and I hope that you guys have a similar experience.
So my name's Spencer. I'm from Omaha, Nebraska. I am graduating from BYU this April in neuroscience, and I'm going to be attending the University of Nebraska's Medical College. So back at home in Omaha, which is exciting. I'm glad to be back, and my fiance is going to be attending nursing school there too. But just like these two, I also took my MCAT back in this last summer, so during COVID, and I've been with Altius as a tutor for the last 8 months. It's just been a wonderful experience to be able to take some of the lessons that I was able to learn as a student, and then help other students now learn those same lessons and be able to just achieve on their MCAT.
That's really cool. Thanks for the introductions. And I haven't really thought about all the total impact of your COVID experience, and here we are this many months later still working through some of these types of things. So it's really, really powerful, but it's interesting because I kept thinking the impact of this, will it create more doctors or less, right? Is this kind of thing that's like, oh, I do not want to be a first responder. I don't want to go into that world. And yet it seems like it's actually done the exact opposite. More and more people want to be part of that solution and part of that ability to really change things out. So I think it's my hat's off with tons of respect for what you guys have accomplished and achieved. Very, very powerful, very inspiring. So with that, let me kick off with a question I have, and that is, tell me about some of the new skills you've gained along the way. Tell me about maybe common characteristics that you saw in some of your peers or some of your students and successful things, but I'd like to know what makes you a different medical school student than what you were an undergrad student? What are the things that changed by virtue of this Altius experience? Who wants to tackle that?
I can start.
Okay.
I think the biggest thing that changed for me is I actually learned how to study it effectively. I'm sure, like a lot of people who are pursuing medicine, high school and things like that were always easy to me. Going into undergrad, I would cram for tests. I mean, I would just, day or two before my biochem test or my OChem test, you cram for it, get the material you need done, and then take the test, forget it almost immediately. And that's just kind of how I do it. And I know lots of people do that the same way. But when I was studying for the MCAT, you can't really do that. First of all, you're studying for, multiple months on end, so you can't just cram for it, because if you forget it 2 days later, it's not going to help you on the MCAT. But on top of it, what it taught me was how to effectively learn material and remember it. And I'm still amazed even now when I'm working with my students one-on-one. They'll ask me questions about, some subject that I haven't specifically studied in, almost a year since when I took my MCAT, yet I still remember it extremely well. And I remember well enough that I can teach them about that and help them understand it. And it's not because, I'm just naturally have this ability with, biology or chemistry. It's because while I was studying, I learned how to properly study and have these good skills that allowed for actual recall and encoding of the material instead of just, cramming for it. And I think that is going to be the biggest thing I take with me when I go to medical school, is actually learning and studying, because I think we can all agree. You want a doctor who knows their stuff and who remembers their stuff 5-6 years after they learned it, instead of having someone who crammed for their medical school test, passed it, and then just moved on.
Yeah.
And I think kind of going along with that, one of the things that I learned was that I was not very, I thought that I worked a lot harder than I actually did. I would spend,
you were giving yourself credit for sacrificing.
Exactly. I would go in, I'd say, oh man, I'm going to study for like 8 hours, and then 4 hours later, I was still on Facebook or YouTube or something. Man, I worked so hard, I just never break. And what was really nice for me was, having some of that structure to be able to go, okay, I've got to get this done, this, being very task oriented, so that I could say, okay, I'm just going to block out this hour and a half, and I'm going to get this done. And then moving forward, I'm going to block this hour and a half, get this done. Okay, now I'm going to take a 10-minute break because I've actually studied for 3 hours, and then continue to go on. And it was amazing how much more, quote unquote, time I had available to study because I was actually focused.
Very cool. Very cool. How would that relate to, you've probably seen that now outside of yourself, but into some of the students that you've been mentoring. So what would you say were kind of common characteristics of those successful students? What are they doing that maybe others are not?
Yeah, I would say, so in similar vein of what Spencer and Conrad just said, my students that are successful are the ones that are on top of, so we use a flashcard program called Anki. There's a bazillion YouTube tutorials on how to do it, and most of them are students in medical school or in pharmacy school saying, here's how to learn the literally 1,000 terms you need to know for your next test. The students that succeed are the ones who stay on top of their flashcards. They're the ones who make good conceptual flashcards from the get-go, and they're the ones that make a schedule and they stick to it. They stick to it religiously. Yes, I have a biochem test. Yes, I've got this research in the lab I need to stay on top of, but I've accounted that into my schedule, and I make that schedule, and I do not deviate from that schedule. I stick to it. I know that my score is dependent on me sticking to the schedule, and the ones that succeed, the ones that I see the most improvement on from each different full-length practice exam are the ones who make good flashcards and the ones who stick to that schedule religiously.
Very cool. Very cool. We're getting a question from chat wanting to know about maybe a variation in regards to studying habits and study techniques. One question is, have you ever used a different type of prep company? And if so, what were the kind of the differences that you saw there? Did any of you study, maybe self-study or take a different prep company?
So I actually did some self-studying initially, and I'm not going to throw any other specific companies under the bus, obviously. Yeah. But definitely I felt like reading the textbook, I was just reading a textbook. I was reading it and then I would forget it. Whereas one of the things that I really love about the Altius Student Study Manual is the application of that expensive memory principle, something that's been scientifically proven that when you work hard to understand something, you remember it. And there's certain things from my undergrad where I can look back and be like, man, I had a really, really hard time remembering the glycolysis enzymes. But guess what? I can recall those anytime now. Like I feel like I'm never going to forget those because I had to work so dang hard to get that. And so I think that I just think that Altius is structured and it's scientifically backed to really help students recall things, not just for the MCAT, but if they're working as a mentor later, or I'm sure I'm going to remember those for medical school.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my answer.
Perfect. And that really should be the overall win, right? We don't just want to cram for an exam and get the win for the day. Ultimately, what we're doing is preparing to become physicians and surgeons. In your career, it starts now, right? It doesn't, it's not like all of a sudden you get a white lab coat and this stuff's just going to like stick in your brain. White lab coats are not magnets for knowledge, right?
Wish they were.
Wish they were. Yep, exactly. So, well, as you've touched on some of these things in regards to study and time management, schedule, and things of that nature, think of for a moment about a few of the students that you've mentored. And what I'd like you to contemplate and share with our audience is, what's the difference between like a 505 MCAT score and a 515 MCAT score? What really makes the difference in that world? Conrad, let's start with you. You've tutored hundreds of people.
I've had probably a couple hundred students that I've worked with individually, kind of through that whole process. And really, the big difference that I see is there's a few things. First, the first one that I always note is that the students who tend to score the best continue to ramp up their intensity as they get closer to the test. The students who kind of stagnate are the ones who go, I put in so much effort for the first, 7 months. I've got 2 more months left. All right, I'm just going to kind of slow it down. And that usually is where the students tend to kind of stagnate. You've got to ramp up your intensity the closer you get to your test. It should be kind of a crescendo.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that I've noticed as well is that so often students forget that the MCAT is not about memorizing material. It's how you apply that material. That's what the MCAT is really testing. And as soon as you figure that out and start learning how to do that, your scores are going to skyrocket. And so the difference between a 505 and a 515 is not content knowledge. It generally is not. Maybe there's a few things that they don't know. Maybe there's a couple physics formulas that they don't know, but I would bet that all of us had at least 1 or 2 physics formulas that we wish we knew better when we took the test. Right? That's not the difference. That's not the difference that makes, an incredible score. But each of us knew how to take the test. We knew what the test was testing, and we knew how to apply the basic science information that all of us know into something that netted us points on the actual test. And that's what I see with those students who are the most successful.
If I can add something onto that, the difference between a 505 and a 515, just looking at it from like the percentile distribution scores, we see like a 505 is going to put you probably right around the 60th, 70th percentile. 515 is going to be 95th percentile. So what you're looking at is the students who score 515 and above, they're willing to do what 95% of other students are not willing to do. And so kind of how Conrad was saying, they are so much more dedicated to their studying. They have this intensity that's almost contagious. Like they are super dedicated to the fact that they want this high MCAT score. A 515 isn't something you just happen into. You don't just get lucky one day and walk upon a 515 score. It's something that takes months of dedication and months of preparation because you have to put in the work that 95% of pre-med students aren't willing or able to put in. And so if you want to be in that top 5 percentile with the 515 plus, you need to be in the top 5 percentile of students dedicated to their MCAT study, dedicated to not just learning the material, but understanding how to apply it conceptually. And that's really what makes the difference is that dedication that students have as they approach their study.
That's really neat. And really it's understanding that you gain the knowledge from the university. You've really got the knowledge. Now it's really application and discipline. And if you can add discipline and to the mixture, magical things happen, right?
Absolutely.
Some great things happen.
Absolutely.
So that's great. Well, you all seem like hardworking, high-achieving, very dedicated individuals. You're obviously, given St. Patrick's Day, very lucky on your MCAT scores, right?
luck.
Do you ever have difficulties? We had a chat come in, a question on the chat in regards to rejections, or how did you handle it when your grades were slipping or you got bad marks on your practice test? Did any of you have any like difficult times? Was it all glory all the way? Or share with me some of the sacrifices and frustrations.
So we were kind of laughing about that question before we were on there, like every other day we were discouraged. Every other day we wanted to quit and give up. I think the important thing to remember is you are human and you need to take a break. I set a goal for myself while I was studying, like that last semester I was studying for the MCAT and working my application. I told myself to do one fun thing every weekend, whether that was, maybe this was pre-COVID, but it was like going out to dinner with my roommates, or it was, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to watch this movie, I'm going to watch it. I'm doing one fun thing, whether Friday, Saturday, like whatever it is, I'm doing one fun thing for my sanity. And then all the other time is going into whether it's studying for the, my OChem test or MCAT or whatever it is, it's taking care of yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, so that you can do your best. And remembering when you do have failings, that's why they're called practice tests. That's why it's practice. If you in group session, if you get it 50%, that's okay. It's better to do that in the practice than on the real thing. So that was, and I had a wonderful tutor who really helped me stay grounded. And when I would get so down on myself, he would say, hey, it's okay. This is just practice where, it's, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a sports analogy. If you're the field goal kicker, it's okay if you miss in practice so that on test day, we get it right exactly. Just don't go too hard on yourself, I think would be my biggest advice.
That's really important, true, right? Because there's going to be so much practice in your career, right? I mean, you're going to have times in the operating room with a real patient, but you're also going to have a lot of time in labs and in laboratories and with cadavers and things of that nature where you actually get to practice and you have teams and people with you. And so I think it's pretty common in the pre-med world to have this high achieving mentality of I always have to be perfect and A plus 4.0 and get it right every time. But I bet, Steve, there's a balance in there that allows you to still succeed and work through those difficult moments as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think that as pre-medical students, it's really easy to get the blinders on.
Yep.
Like, okay, I just need to get a 95th percentile MCAT score, and that's the only thing that matters in my life. But I think that, I think all of us were probably guilty of feeling that way at some point. But when we have those failures, I think it's important to remember that becoming a physician is a job that requires character. And character is only built through failure, through hard times.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the purposes of the MCAT, is that it's supposed to be a high pressure, really difficult part of our pre-medical journey. And I think that being grounded, all those things that Emily was saying, that those will help us become better physicians. Those will help us have better character. And I think that, I don't know where exactly I was going with that, to be honest. But
that was great.
I mean, I specifically remember a time when I was taking my last round of practice tests, right? And everybody's like, oh, you got to be improving, and I'm slowly making the, incremental increase, 2-3 points each test. I'm like, yeah, this is happening. 2 tests before I go take my real test, I drop like 15 points. And, to the worst score I had ever had in my entire life. And I was just like, it's over. I'm done. I don't know what I'm doing here. I just wasted 6 years of my life, and I remember talking to my mentor, and he said, it's going to be okay. Clearly you're burnt out. Let's learn from this mistake. And I learned so much from that test that when I took it again, I improved, I think it was by 20 points from that test. So a net of 5 from where I was normally scoring. And I wouldn't have had that experience if I hadn't have failed. Additionally, I wouldn't have had that experience if I would have just kind of covered it up and would have just said, oh yeah, we're not going to talk about that test. One of the things I find that students really struggle with, especially pre-med students, because nobody wants to fail. Nobody wants to say, hey, you who has accomplished an amazing MCAT score and are on your way to medical school, I just failed this test. I really want to show you it, right? And you have to kind of get over that when you're, in order to be successful, right? The best physicians, they always ask questions. They all, they're willing to make, mistakes during the practice time. And that's really one of the things that really contributed the most to helping me jump big points, was not only looking at my successes, but also looking at my failures, because we can learn a lot from when we don't do something right.
I just want to add something real quick to that. I think it's so important to recognize burnout is so real. And if you experience burnout, that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. It means you're human, and your body telling you, it's your body and your mind telling you, I need a break. I'm maxed out. I've reached my limitation. I need to scale back a little bit. So don't worry if you experience burnout. That means you're human like the rest of us.
But if you don't ever experience it when you're studying for the MCAT, it means you're probably not studying hard enough.
You're not studying
Do it at least once.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, we all experience
You haven't lit the match,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
We've all experienced burnout here, so we know it's a thing, and it's just something, obviously you want to avoid as much as possible with the MCAT, but when it does happen, just take it in stride, take a day off. I always tried to structure my schedule so I always had Sundays off, because I said if I study 6 days a week really effectively, I can take that 7th day off. And that really helped me, just because I knew at the end of each week I had one day where I wasn't going to touch the MCAT. I didn't touch anything, because it was just my mental break day where I could just check out and know that I could relax a little bit.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. You guys got me thinking as you were talking about kind of the other side of this whole experience, right? We talked like knowledge and dedication and sacrifice and taking a break and burnout. What about the quirky stuff? Did any of you have like a human real life experience in the middle of your MCAT world? Or?
I've got one. So this was in the middle. This was the night before my MCAT. So I was one of the lucky people that got to take it at 6:30 in the morning. So I had booked a hotel room like across the street from my testing center, because I was like, I don't want to get up because it was like half an hour away from my house, and I was like, that's going to be the morning my tire blows out. Like, so I'm just going to spend the night at the hotel right before the testing center. And since I was taking it at 6:30 in the morning, I was like 9 o'clock. I had taken my melatonin and I was going to sleep, and I realized I had left my packed lunch in my apartment and I had no snacks. I had no food.
Oh.
So I had already taken my melatonin. Definitely should not have been operating a motor vehicle. But I got in the car and I was like, if I don't have a snack during the test, like I'm going to be so hungry to start. What to do? There was like some kind of grocery store, not too far from the hotel. So I went and grabbed like a box of granola bars and like a little bunch of bananas. I was like, okay, this has to be good. And then everything was fine on testing, but just like that sheer moment of panic of like, oh no. I didn't sleep super well the night before, but again, I don't know. It all turned out fine. And just that one moment of panic, I don't know. It was just a very human moment to me. Like, you know what? Like, yes, I'm going to be a doctor someday, and I forgot my lunch on. Like, so yeah, that was kind of a fun moment.
The part that I knew when I had really mimicked test conditions was about a month after I had taken my test. I could tell you what time it was, because every break, when it was between the physics and the car break, which is 10 minutes, I'd always go do a quick bathroom break and grab a glass of water. And I would be sitting there having a conversation with someone. I go, I'm thirsty. And it was clockwork. Like, I could tell you exactly what time it was, because it was like, oh, well, it must be 12:45 because this is the half hour where I'm hungry now. Which was what and if I waited past that time, I would not get hungry anymore. I'd be like super focused. And I'm like, man, I just like classically conditioned myself. I'm like, I am one of Pavlov's dogs. Like, it was really funny to me to see that, we learned about that. That was part of, that you're going to see that on your MCAT. And I'm like, I'm totally experiencing this. And I remember that being just really funny to me, because I could tell you exactly what time it was without even looking at my watch.
Yeah, so I had an experience that's almost the exact opposite of Emily. So my MCAT start time was at 6 p.m. In the evening, which was its own thing. But that meant that I had to shift my entire study schedule. So up until like my testing time got changed, I had a really good schedule. I would get up right at 8 a.m. I'd study throughout the day, do my classes, and then I'd get to bed by 10:30 at night. It was the best my sleep schedule had ever been. Then my MCAT date got moved to a 6 p.m. test slot, and I had to completely shift my entire sleep schedule. So I would start studying from 6 p.m. to midnight, stay up till about 3:30 in the morning, so I wasn't tired at midnight when I was finishing up my MCAT. And then I'd sleep till about 10:30, 11, get up, do my normal day stuff at noon, and then I keep going. But what that meant is on my test day, I had to wait. I got up at about 10:30. I had to wait like 6.5 hours before I left for my test. And so I had no idea what to do that day, because I didn't want to cram, because I wanted to be fresh for my test. So I literally just wandered around my house for 6 hours. I tried watching Netflix. I couldn't watch Netflix. I couldn't stay focused. I tried going to the gym. Couldn't focus at the gym. I literally had nothing to do for 6 hours, and I was just stressed out of my mind the entire time. Then I got to my test. The moment I opened my test, I don't know why. I think it was just because of all the practice tests and the great preparation. Completely at peace. But for the 6 hours beforehand, I was stressed out of my mind.
I love it. Well, awesome. I'm going to step back on the camera here, guys, and thank you for interacting with us and sharing your stories and your lives and your training. I sure appreciate what you've done for the students. You guys are great in that regard. Hope that was helpful and beneficial to all of you. And I know there were additional questions that we didn't answer on air, but we tried to address those through the chat and get you those solutions, and we'll continue sharing those. As we get ready, I want to share the prize and the drawing for this particular segment. Here we're going to be giving away one self-paced program. This is a little unique because this particular program is for the individual that says, I can do this on my own. I'll figure out my own schedule and my own study approach, but I want the best materials and I want accurate practice exams and things of that nature. And so this is a $1,000 course that is available to you. It gives you all of the materials that you need to be really successful. It doesn't include any of these fantastic individuals, but those are other options and opportunities you have, and we'll discuss some of those options throughout the day-to-day. As we move into the next segments, I want you all to be aware that at the top of the next hour, we're going to introduce some of our regional directors from different areas throughout the nation. And they're going to be discussing and sharing with you tools and resources available at local levels and various options, throughout the nation. So very cool resources. But if we have a little bit of a drum roll, there you go. The winner for this free self-paced study program, Brock Brummett. Brock Brummett from Brown University in Providence, Rhode Island. Congratulations, Brock. My team will email and text you and get connected. So as far as claiming that prize, watch for that email and that text, and they'll get that all pulled together for you. And if you felt like you wish you'd have won this particular drawing but did not, I want you to look closely at the chat. We're going to put in some codes for you, some discount codes. Not the full tuition that Brock just got, but certainly do everything we possibly can to get that tuition reduced as low as we possibly can for all of you. So look for some of those codes and insights. And again, stay tuned. We'll be broadcasting again every hour at the top of the hour with different topics and different trainings all throughout the day. So congratulations to all of you for your great scores and your future careers. And thank you again for your time. Take care, everybody.